Are you curious about the experience of blindness and how it intersects with identity, culture, and relationships? If so, then today's book just might be for you. Today I'll be reviewing The Country of the Blind by Andrew Leland. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today I'm taking a look at another Pulitzer Prize finalist, this time in the category of memoir. The book, The Country of the Blind, is a deeply personal and an incredibly thought-provoking exploration of sight and blindness and really what it means to adapt to a world that you can no longer really see or fully engage with in the same way that you used to. I would say that Andrew Leland's memoir takes us through his journey as he navigates life with the degenerative disease retinitis pigmentosa, and it actually has caused him to gradually lose his blindness, which is, I think, the thing that gives this a keen insight, because this isn't someone who, because of some tragic accident or something, just woke up the next day and then had to learn to work in a completely blinded world. This is someone who's had the awareness and has been able to see his vision not only get worse, but he's also had to navigate that and figure out what it means. And so, he didn't just have to completely learn everything new. He had to learn them in phases. He had to one day decide he can no longer drive and figure out what exactly that means, or he can't exactly read the way he used to. And so that, I think, is one of the reasons why this is such an insightful book, is because that gradualness gives it this very impactful deliberateness in the way that he presents the process and the different things that he didn't necessarily expect as he was going blind, such as the impacts on his relationship and just trying to see how the world now perceives him. Speaking of which, one of the most touching moments in the book, I would actually say, is when he is trying really hard to learn how to read Braille. This is not very easy to do in and of itself, and certainly not easy to do if you're an adult. You're not used to the level of sensitivity necessary in your fingertips, and just the whole process of trying to learn Braille versus being able to read as a sighted person is so fundamentally different that there's actually a fair amount of pushback from people that say you really can't do this. And one of the touching moments is when he asks his son if he can actually read him from a Braille book for the first time. And the son says sure, and the son is actually quite patient with him as he very slowly tries to read this. As a matter of fact, the son keeps interjecting, saying, trying to guess what the next word would be, just because his dad is so slow at reading this way. And the son says he loves doing that and would love to do it more. And so it's one of these moments where you can see that optimism from somebody, but it's also somebody that hasn't had to deal with the ongoing frustrations yet. The son thinks that was a cool new experience, but who's to say that after a couple weeks of that he would not enjoy doing that anymore. And so that is kind of the whole point of this book, is trying to show that contrast of knowing something's coming, trying to adapt to the world necessary, but also not seeing everyone being on the same page. Like I said, I would say the relationship with his wife is probably the best example of that in this book. I mean, the memoir it's full of moments like this where you have these personal challenges that intersect with universal themes of love and family and identity. And so Leland also reflects on his struggles with his marriage. In one poignant scene, he recalls a dinner where he is, trying to go to the bathroom, and so he pulls out his cane, and his wife actually tells him he doesn't need it, and so wanting to believe her, he puts it away, but after, kind of stumbling his way there, he feels like, no, he actually did need it. And so you can see how this is a raw and an honest moment that really illustrates just the emotional complexity of adjusting to blindness, and not just as an individual, but as a partnership, as well as a family, as well as a larger community. The book also explores his rigorous training program that he went to. I believe it was in Colorado. I've actually heard this story a couple times. He's been on a couple different podcasts. This is where I first became aware of him as an author, and he discusses what it was like to go to Colorado, to not only learn how to do certain things, but to just be thrown all in and to have to learn how to do the cooking, the cleaning, in a community where everyone is blind. And even those that are only losing their sight, like himself, that are not entirely blind, they are required to do everything completely blinded. And so the whole process is this, ongoing struggle of learning new skills, but, doing it the hard way and just really trying to build confidence and figure out what exactly he can do. If you want to learn more about that, like I said, there's a few podcasts where he discusses it. And the big test of that is being thrown out somewhere into the city and having to find your way back without asking anyone anything, except I think you get one question. And so he details that, and it's fascinating to read about in this book. And it is also just one of those moments of a combination of impressiveness and sheer terror and just trying to figure it all out. And that's what the whole point of this book is, as he is trying to detail these different experiences. But he also makes a point of giving a good deal of history, not just stuff like Braille and other resources and tools for people that are blind, although that is certainly part of it, but just a larger question about disabilities, communities for disabilities, accessibility for people with disabilities, whether that is job employment or going to a university or even just a public school, any of those things that could have an impact on someone's ability to get employed. And he discusses all of that, and he gives a decent amount of history. I would say that sometimes you might want to consider that a bit of a historical digression, but I actually personally felt like that was one of the most important things to these books. As it pertains to memoirs, I don't always love memoirs. Obviously, you have to find out how much you fully trust the author in some regards, especially if there's something really traumatic that they're going to paint a particular picture in their depiction of it. And I felt in this case, obviously, I felt like he was being quite honest and quite raw. But on top of that, I felt like the extra research that he put in added a real important element to what made this a valuable book for anyone, not just to get his individual experience too, but to also see a little bit of the history and a little bit of the context of what the current status and what just the current situation is for somebody that is facing this type of experience. Who would I say that this book is for? Well, if you enjoy memoirs, especially a memoir like this of someone, figuring out a real challenge in their life, then I certainly think you would enjoy this. It's not too terribly long. I also find that he, as a professional writer, I think his writing style is very easy to understand in and of itself. I also, like I said, think that all of the additional research is very valuable. I don't think a memoir should always just try to stand on their own prose. I think that sometimes you are expecting too much of your own writing abilities, or you are trying to say that an experience you had is in and of itself going to be relatable without necessarily giving us more context and information, which I really appreciated that Andrew Leland did. That I think that was one of the most important elements of this book. In my opinion, this is probably the best of the three memoirs for the Pulitzer Prize finalists and winners, although I will make a definitive statement about that when I give my full review of all of the Pulitzer Prize winners. And I would say that anyone that is interested in a much easier to read book that is in the Pulitzer Prize categories, because I don't find all of those to be super easy to read or super relatable, I would say that this is actually going to be one that is far more accessible to most people. Who would I not say this is for? Well, if you don't like memoirs, you're probably not going to like this. If you are going to struggle with the fact that he's very candid about the challenges of becoming blind, then you may not enjoy this either. I would add that even if whatever struggles you might be facing, if it's not necessarily blindness or some other, much more obvious or visible disability, you may just struggle with any kind of engagement with someone that has to face a new reality in this way. I think that could definitely be a challenge for somebody, especially if you're not in the right headspace, or you think that this might put you over in terms of just an emotional overload, because I would certainly say that that's part of this. But by and large, I would recommend this book. I really enjoyed this book. It is definitely a challenge to read about something that is so dramatically affecting somebody's life, but it's also uplifting to hear his very real, very honest reflections on what it's like and the things that you might expect, but also those things that you don't necessarily expect. And I think there is a great value in that, and I really appreciated it from this book in particular. But please let me know what you guys think about this book or any of the other books in the Pulitzer Prize memoir category. Please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.